It feels great. I mean, yesterday was a big moment for me, the winning moment, and I was glad to be in the middle. I'm pretty sure all of our team lost our voices when we were celebrating, and it's great to be going to the World Cup after 13 years. Yeah, we've made history.
Hello and welcome to another Big Innings. Thank you guys so much for joining us on America's Cricket Show. I'm Aaman Patel, joined by Nate Hayes. As always, no Dane Pete in the building once again, but that's all right. We'll get Dane back on the show in plenty of time. Dane, we wish you all the best. We know you're going to Atlanta tomorrow. Know there's a lot going on in the house right now, so we appreciate you for just taking your time and hanging out with us virtually or just talking to us, letting us know. But we hope everything goes out right with you there. If you guys joined us for our first take of this, didn't quite go as planned, but we got everything working, all the technical issues fixed because of our very great Bobby Rig, who's running our entire production. It is an exciting time to be a cricket fan in the USA, Nate. So much is going on. It feels like we haven't got any break from cricket, and some of these players won't get a break either because there's just so much that is happening. How are you feeling before we jump in everything?
Oh, I'm pretty good, man. It's exciting times. Like, it's tough to stay on top of everything. Obviously my big focus, as well as pretty much all of our big focus right now, is minor league cricket,
Yeah.
which has been a lot of fun this season. It's been a lot of a different. It's been a very different season, but there's always plenty to catch, and obviously we're gonna talk about a lot of other stuff too.
We do got a lot of other stuff to talk about. Also, if you just look outside too, it's 10:10 p.m. Eastern time, and there's a super blue moon going on.
Check the super blue moon out.
It'll be the last time until 2037 that we get to see that. So if you haven't seen it, go outside and seen it. But what do you have to do to see the moon? And for a beginning, you got to get your eye in, Nate. And so we haven't done that for a while. Now let's go ahead and get our eye in here on Big Innings with Sami Yusuf there on your screen. And we'll start off with a couple of major leaguers like Sami Yusuf who were picked in the T20, those of the likes of Nosh Kenjige, Corey Anderson, Saurabh Netravalkar, and Mohammad Mohsin. We had 4 of them get picked. How about that?
Yeah, it's pretty excellent. I actually talked to Mohammad Mohsin last week on a minor league cricket show, which you can watch on the MLC network on YouTube. The players are excited about the opportunities that they're getting right now that they otherwise wouldn't have gotten without Major League Cricket. And T20, as we know, has a buttload of for lack of a better term, of overseas players in it, which opens the door for players like Nosh and Corey, who are on the Emirates team. Both of them performed amazingly. Major League, one of the greatest highlights to me was watching Nosh and Saurabh, especially because they're USA players.
Yeah.
Obviously, we love Mohammad Mohsin, we love Corey Anderson as well, but to watch the guys who we know more of their story.
Sure.
We know Nosh's story, we know Saurabh's story, we know how long they've toiled in obscurity in in associate cricket, and to see them kind of stand out the way that they did and earn these chances, it's got me very excited. And there's other drafts to come soon too.
Yeah, plenty of other drafts to come as well. We have a couple in other leagues too. The T20, they'll have their drafts out. Unfortunately, we have quite a few South Africans who have since migrated to the USA. They will not be qualified as domestics for that T20,
That's right. Yes.
Which is a tough blow for them, but you can understand it from maybe the league's perspective.
Yeah, you can understand it from the perspective of players who are currently in South Africa, who are playing in the South African system. You totally can appreciate it and understand it. It's a tough blow to a lot of our guys, and we have a lot of very good cricketers who otherwise would have made great domestics there, but they're domestics in Major League Cricket, and South Africa's T20 league decided that they're not going to be qualified as domestics in South Africa, and they've notified those American South Africans that they're going to have to make their way, if they do, as overseas, which is a tough challenge in a full member cricket league to make it in as an overseas player, when they're going to want to fill those with stars who are going to draw a lot of eyes from the Indian fan base.
Yeah, absolutely. You see those stars kind of cycle through all the leagues in the world, not just T20, but the T20, Major League, the CPL, the Global T20. There's plenty of leagues where you're going to see the same kind of overseas kind of fill rosters. And
That's right.
there's nothing necessarily wrong with it. It's just the way it is. So it is a tough blow for the guys who are here. But,
Right.
you never know. You could see it Andres Kels get picked up maybe, or an Obis Pinar get picked up, which would be awesome to see those guys back in South Africa and maybe turn some heads on grounds they're familiar with.
Yeah, it would be really cool to see that. But I'm not holding my breath for it.
Yeah.
Cricket, unfortunately, we talk about we're moving in as a society into like the gig economy in general. Just generally speaking, that's where industry is going.
Yeah.
And cricket is ahead of the curve. Almost like they're kind of like a peek into the future of the gig economy, which is not an ideal situation if you're if you're a cricketer or if you're an athlete. We know that if you really want to make it big in the world, you got to be one of the top.
Sure.
It's crazy how few players really make it to the point where they can kind of like hang their hat on the fact that they're going to get hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. It's because the leagues stagger around each other. We see the same names in leagues around the world, and this is a challenge with cricket. Obviously, it happens this way because it's always happened this way. But the way that people follow international cricket is why franchise cricket is like this.
Yeah.
England's going to go to India and play for 3 to 8 weeks. And that's, so this is the way people have always followed cricket. Follow your team for this trip, and then follow them to another trip, and then follow it for a homestand. And our franchise leagues work exactly the same way.
No, they do. And so I think, it leads to the interesting question of, as we move to, like you mentioned, gig culture and how it's going to be about how many gigs can you line up, how many leagues can you play in.
Yeah.
Where is there that stability for some of these players? Because now it's if you don't have a good, for an country, you don't have a good major league.
Yeah.
Well, maybe now you're not getting another ILT chance. So
that's right.
There's a lot of mystery when it comes to it. So it'd be interesting to see if there's like a English Premier League feel about this, where they're also less so a gig but a club franchise model, at least in Europe, and they have those yearly contracts with teams, and maybe are we seeing the beginning of maybe one Super League coming, or where they kind of bounce around and it's like for 10 months of the year you're playing in a T20 franchise league and you're going through different countries. I'm not sure that's on the cards, but I think there is an interesting conversation to be had about how you approach security from a financial perspective for some of these players.
I don't know. It doesn't seem like the leagues have that as a priority, the players' security. It certainly doesn't seem that way, which much like the rest of the gig economy. The workers are kind of an afterthought. It's all about the investors.
Right.
And cricket certainly works that way. So that's a trick. It's a sport that we love and we love to follow, but that's one of the limitations. That's one of the things we have to deal with. Yeah. And I think you mentioned a Super League or something like that, or the idea of having it set up like European football or something where you have international windows is not going to happen as long as the ICC has any say in it. We see them already influencing, deciding how many full members overseas you can have per playing 11. We see them talking about that. If they have the power to do that, they have the power to limit the length of franchise leagues.
No, absolutely. And so again, that's going to be the trick. I think it is going to be about that balance of, yes, we love international cricket, but is international cricket still viable enough to financially or for both parties, right?
Yeah.
Both the investor and the player, or the person doing the act, is it viable enough for them to continue to want to do it in that model? And I think that's something that we're going to continue to see unfold in the next 5 to 10 years. I think we see some massive change in the way things are. I wouldn't expect it to be exactly the same.
Right.
And I'm curious to see what cricket is in 5 to 10 years, to be quite frank.
I'm curious too. I've always wanted it to kind of take the turn of quote-unquote Americanization, where you have like a longer season league that provides more jobs for not just the cricketers but the managers, the people who work with the teams, who now just it's tough for anybody who works in cricket. You have to work in all the leagues, not just one of them.
Right.
And that leaves very few opportunities for people. And especially when, and when you can pay people from the most popular cricketing nations a whole lot less in terms of USD, in terms of, than you can pay, maybe some Western nations, people who want to work from England or Australia, you can pay a lot less for Indian workers, basically. And these people are incredibly passionate, and they are the experts in cricket right now, and they are the people in Indians, are so passionate about cricket.
Right.
So why not pay someone less who make that money go further themselves at their home? So there's a lot of challenges to spreading the game into new markets, and it's really unusual. And so like I said, I've always been a fan of the idea that cricket might make a turn towards Americanization with longer seasons, more jobs created for people. I just don't know at this point if that's in the cards. Because it doesn't, the people who are investing it doesn't advantage them at all.
Sure. And again, a lot of interesting questions that we pose here, and obviously we don't have all the answers. You guys might have some questions and some answers, so please feel free to drop them down in the comments, as well as, and while you're down there, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. But we would love to interact with you guys in the comments. We love doing that. That's part of one of our favorite things about the show, seeing the good old comments that flow in. So if you do have any, please feel free to go down there, whether we're getting our eye in or whether we're well set. We're ready to go and face some of these questions.
And we take our time getting our eye in.
Yeah, we do. We're 80 strike rate kind of guys over here.
Yeah.
But the other league we already talked about two of them. How about another? The BBL draft is among us, and they, unlike Major League, they have an overseas draft. Major League, just the domestic draft. The BBL has an overseas draft, and in that overseas draft, we see a couple of USA players who have qualified, put their name into it, and that's really exciting to see. Guys like Harmeet Singh, Aaron Jones, Ali Khan, Monang Patel, Smit Patel, and maybe one that was a little bit of a surprise here, Yasir Mohammed, the young leg spinner. He's in the BBL draft. So how about this?
I think it's really cool. I think it's bold. I mean, I think it's a long shot.
Sure.
But I'm a little bit surprised to not see some of the players listed from the setups from San Francisco or from Washington.
Sure.
I'm a little disappointed not to see their names there. I don't know what obviously Smit Patel is listed, and he played for San Francisco. But yes, I'm a little surprised not to see those names. You would have liked to see it, but obviously I think the most likely name from those teams to go would have been Saurabh Netravalkar.
Sure.
And obviously Corey Anderson's already going to the IEL T20.
Both of them.
Exactly. So this makes sense. Why not to see a few more names? But I would have liked to see some of that. Now, yes, Yasir Mohammed. A lot of us feel like he should have been included in as a U23. Sure. Or he was right there like we have talked about before. There were only 6 U23s taken. Yeah. There could have been any of 10, 11, 12, even more. Could have been taken, and we would have thought, oh, that's good. That makes sense. We wouldn't have scoffed at it. And he's one of the names. If he had been taken, we wouldn't have scoffed at it. He's a left-handed batting, right arm wrist spin bowler.
Yep.
And that is a T20
dream.
Yeah,
it is a T20 dream, and he has international experience, taking international wickets against Ireland. He's taking them against Oman and the UAE and Nepal. He's played in high level, and so it's not surprising. It was surprising not to see him maybe get drafted, or it's more so okay. There's only a couple that are going to get picked, but it would have not been surprising to see him get drafted. I'm interested to see what happens here. Might not get touched in this draft, but you get your name out there. People say, "Who's this guy?"
Yeah.
And look around. I think some names that maybe you're like, "Oh, why aren't they in there?" Andres Kaus, as you were mentioning, just some of these guys. But also, one thing to mention, no Ulmukhchand this season. Remember, last year was part of the BBL.
It was 2 years ago.
2 years ago, yes.
Last year he went to Nepal instead, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah.
But 2 years ago, part of the BBL was the first Indian player to play, I believe, outside the IPL in any T20 league. I think that was at least the BBL.
Yeah,
at the very least, it was the BBL. So, some interesting no names on there, but we got the BBL draft, so we'll be rooting for those guys, seeing where they end up going, and if they end up going. And I think Harmeet Singh could find himself in a playing 11 pretty consistently, just based off the performances he's been getting off.
Absolutely, yeah. He was very solid. He led all domestic American bowlers in overs in the Major League Cricket. So we all think very highly of him, and we think that he's certainly capable of being taken in this draft. Wouldn't surprise me one bit. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I can't wait. We only have a couple of days to wait. September 3rd is the BBL auction, so we'll be tuned in for that.
It'll be a lot of fun. And speaking of tuned in, CPL, the biggest party in sports, it's back, and it's better than ever. And we also have a couple of Americans back in. Ali Khan back with the Knight Riders franchise, and then Steven Taylor in Jamaica. So there you go. We got two USA national team players back in the CPL. Love to see it.
Right, and then you got Hayden Walsh Jr. playing in Jamaica as well.
Apparently, he's not a domestic anymore, Nate. Unfortunately.
Well,
but
I'd like to see that change in the CPL.
I'm
but
with that.
in the MLC.
MLC, I'm with that.
But if we're going to get down to it, I mean, it's MLC's choice. If he's playing as a domestic in the CPL, I understand. But he's to me, he kind of fits that same nook that Tim David did when he was playing for Singapore, but he was playing as a domestic in the BBL.
Yep.
So every league has their decision how they're going to manage these things. I think that a guy like Hayden Walsh Jr. as a domestic in MLC would bring some quality to the domestic thing, but at the same time he was in the MLC anyways, and that left a spot for another domestic player. So sure, whatever. I mean, it's not that big of a thing. But what I want to talk about the CPL this year, those uniforms look really nice.
They do look really nice. We weren't able to get any graphics to you guys, but if you were just to take a quick gander, CPL, Google it with the uniforms. I think Jamaica jerseys look pretty darn good.
I like St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yeah, they are. The Barbados Royals, I think they do a really good job with their jerseys all the time, and the Knight Riders have their classic.
Of course, Knight Riders are always going to be near the top. They've got the brand recognition, and I think they have a really slick look. Yeah,
they do, and I'm excited for all that the CPL has to offer. And again, the biggest party in sports, and we got 2 Americans, and we know Americans love to party, so this should be a good time. Right,
and yes, Ollie's appeared in 2 games so far for the Trinbago Knight Riders. He's taken 1 wicket so far. He had a tough tournament in Major League, but so did literally every express bowler just about.
Yep.
The conditions weren't terrific for genuine pace. And he missed his spots a few times. There was a couple of games where he was hitting his spots, and people were just making the best out of it. And so I want to see him rebound in the CPL, come back with the performances we know Ali Khan can have, bowling in the high 80s, swinging the ball in at Yorker length. That's the Ali Khan we want to see bounce back and make the recovery next year in Major League Cricket. One of the highlights of Major League Cricket to me was watching Ali Khan bowl the very first ball. We've talked at length about that. So, but yeah, we're all Ali Khan fans here, and we want to see him succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So it'll be good to see that in the CPL. And talking about cricket around the world, we also have the Asia Cup going on. We saw Nepal play today, but it was the story was not about Nepal. It was more about Pakistan and Babar Azam scoring 150 and Shadab Khan taking 4 wickets, Iftihar Ahmed scoring 100. So I'm excited to see what Nepal has to do. I was watching actually Andrew Leonard's live stream yesterday.
Yeah, me too.
On a couple of different
I watched
things,
that too. Yeah.
He talked about how if Nepal can get him out for 280, it could be a game. Well, didn't really happen that way, but Lenny, we know he knows this stuff, and Nepal, if they can make some noise. I think they can surprise some people in some games and just sneak up on somebody.
That's a tough group, though. You got India
tough.
And Pakistan in the same group with Nepal there. That's a really tough one.
It's not a pretty picture to start off with.
No, we'd like to see Nepal do well. Obviously, they did incredibly well to finish off the Cricket World Cup League 2, winning I think 11 out of 12 at the end.
Yep.
I've never heard of that before in ODI cricket.
Yep.
So, yeah, it's a shame that I think we'd be looking at a little different things if this was a T20 tournament.
Sure.
They'd have a better chance, obviously. But yeah, I mean, you're taking on 2 incredibly good one-day teams.
Pakistan's the #1 ODI team in the world, and India's still India. So
yeah,
I mean,
these countries are keeping ODI alive.
Yeah, they are. So it's a tough group to be put into. And you know what? I think getting Nepal on that national stage or the international stage, the best thing that can happen for them is that their eyes being put on them. They already know the fan base is already behind them.
Right.
And I remember Andrew Leonard saying he thinks Nepal and Scotland are the 2 next nations that could be given full member status. And with a couple improvements in infrastructure, he feels Nepal's right there. And I'm like, you know what? Why not? You have, you have a couple facilities already there. You have a fan base. You have a team that's good, that's together. You know what? This is a team that if they just do a couple of things right, they could be well on their way to full member.
I think you need to see some more of those upsets, though.
I think that's going to be the key.
Scotland has that.
Yes.
Scotland's got that aspect locked up. Like
right.
they consistently beat England basically.
Yeah.
So like they always have an upset against England. It seems like. So, but yeah, Scotland they've come a long way to get to the point that they're at where they're a threat to beat just about anybody.
Yeah.
A lot of that has to do with their attitude changes within the whole entire structure. So yeah, it's a it's a big thing to think about these teams as full member teams. Obviously, we're looking at more and more speculation that teams will become full member without the need to play Test cricket,
Right.
which has to happen.
I think it's going to end up happening. You see a lot of countries now. It's a white ball game.
Yeah.
Now that's what cricket's becoming. And for all the old heads that said, "Oh, well, red ball is the purest form of cricket," maybe you're right, maybe you're not right. But
Sure.
and I love a good Test match, right? But the way that the countries and these people make money
Mm-hmm.
outside the Ashes and maybe like a Border Gavaskar trophy every now and again, do you really see a Test match being like the highlight, the money making thing for a country? It's just
No.
not, right? And it
Yeah.
ends up being your limited over series.
Well, the gulf between like the number one Test nation in the world, or the top 3 or 4, and like
Everybody
at the
else.
very end,
Yeah.
it's a pretty big gap, anyways. Like how many teams become Test playing nations? How many nations become Test playing nations and then go
Compete.
a decade without winning a series?
Think about Afghanistan, right? It's tough for them to win. You don't hear them winning a lot of series, right? And then even for Sri Lanka for a long time, it was tough to win series. Like it's a long road to get to the Test playing level, and then it's an even longer road to beat the teams that are very much established in the Test playing world.
Right.
So,
And if you're Ireland and you host
think about
and you
Ireland.
host some teams, unless you're hosting India, it's not really worth it.
Exactly, and that becomes a problem with red ball cricket. And so again, we were talking about how cricket could change in the next 5 to 10 years drastically. That's something to watch. But again, we don't have the answers for that right now. We can only voice the questions and put those things out into the universe. But I think we've seen the ball a little bit right now. I think we're seeing it quite well. So let's jump in to some things, and we'll jump off with maybe the most exciting news that we've had in a while. Maybe in fact since 2013, because the USA under-19 men, they are headed to the under-19 World Cup since the first time since 2013.
2010, I think, right?
2010, first time in 13 years, rather.
13
excuse
years,
me.
yep.
13 years, first time since 2010 that they're headed to the World Cup. How about that, Nate? And we had our very own Utkar Srivastava. You heard from him earlier, and this is the moment right here. You can see shot goes straight up from front of, and Utkar, she's running around. The whole team's running around. I saw videos on Snapchat afterwards. The whole team was going insane. What a moment for not just these individuals, but cricket in the USA. And for all of us who are talking about that 2021 team, I think this vindicates a lot of what we were saying.
Oh, absolutely. It's really cool to see that they did this, in Canada.
Yeah.
We didn't know the game was going to happen because of the weather.
Right.
Thankfully, the ICC and the umpires were really diligent about making sure the game happened. It was shortened to 23 overs, and then in the middle of the first innings, it was shortened to 22 overs.
Right.
And so, yes, USA, they were amazing in that game. So you have to think about this, though. Like the in sports, obviously, the emotional aspect is such a big part of it. So you're sitting there on the side waiting all day to play this game. If you're Canada, if you don't play the game, you go on.
You go on.
If you're USA, you're just chomping at the bit to get in the game. Utkar said they didn't think the game would happen.
Yeah.
And then when they were told the game would happen, they spiked. The emotions of the team just went through the roof.
It had to.
So you're hitting the you're hitting the field now.
Yep.
You're going out in the middle, and you're USA, and you're on top of the world. I got a chance now to advance.
It's almost like, and you think that moment of USA are like, okay, they had nothing to lose at that point. It's, we are given a life.
Yeah,
and Canada's like, crap, we have to play.
We gotta play now.
I'm sure they want to play, and that all the young men there are fantastic cricketers. Not to take away from that.
You're right.
But it's just the emotion of being comfortable and saying, all right, Rain's going to keep going. We're going to the World Cup, boys. No, you got to play this game that's no longer 50 overs.
Right.
I guess the team that you nearly lost to earlier, who's already that much more hungry, you got to beat them now to go to the World Cup. It's a whole different ball game.
How do you get a bunch of young men, too?
Yeah.
Into that mindset to avoid falling into
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. You get complacent, right? And you start to drift. Everybody starts to drift, whether you're 17, 18, 19 years old, or whether you've played cricket for 17, 18, 19 years. It's hard not to fall into that trap. And,
it is.
So you feel for the kids from Canada, and you feel from the family perspectives and all those people who've put a lot of hard work into Canadian cricket. But for us here in the USA, this is a huge moment. They're headed to Sri Lanka. I actually ran into Athinda Subramanian last weekend in Atlanta, and I talked to him about the under-19s, and he was like, yeah, man, we didn't know the game. Like you said, we didn't know the game was gonna happen, but it felt really good. It was just an unbelievable moment, and and you don't how many unbelievable moments do you get in life, and I think this is a huge one for them, and for us, like when it happened, we're like pumping through videos through the group chats and anything about them. They're on the field doing it. It's a whole nother level.
And
man.
it's funny because of how the cricket community in the USA can sometimes be at each other's necks.
Sure.
But like all these people that you see going at each other are celebrating together.
Yeah.
And that's why we got to play cricket. We got to play cricket. We don't play enough T20 internationals in the USA.
Yeah.
There are a lot of opportunities. We need to play an Audi Cup. But when we have these things going, it's beneficial to the national governing body. It's beneficial to the members of the board, as long as we have cricket happening here, and cricket that's meaningful.
Yeah.
And I don't care what difference it makes as far as the qualifiers go. Anytime we play Canada, it's meaningful.
It's USA versus Canada. For those of you who don't know, Nate has a brief history lesson for you. We played the first international match of any sport, I believe in your video you said, against Canada.
Yeah.
The international cricket scene started with USA versus Canada.
That's right.
This is a rivalry that you can use and endorse and promote at a high level, man.
Right, and anytime we've played them has been very meaningful now.
I mean, think about the games are good.
They're great
talk
games.
about the
They're always
2019
great
games, and then talk about in 2018 when we played them at Church Street Park.
Yeah.
USA lost in a super over in that first match.
Sure.
Then Stephen Taylor in the second match they played scores 22 off that final over that kind of transcended that moment, right? So the USA Canada series is one that should be utilized way more often. You can play up in Canada for a year.
Play it at Brampton. Play it here. Go back and forth.
Go back and
forth.
You
got to play it at Mooresville, though. Like, for real.
Mooresville, go to Dallas. You can do different things.
Yeah.
But you have facilities and options. I think for USA Cricket, what this shows is, yes, you want to play more cricket. And sure, it'd be awesome to play Ireland every single year.
Sure.
But what's more likely? You can play Canada every single year, and it'd be really beneficial for the country and the cricketing nation.
Right, and the GT20 up in Canada is we got the MLC here.
Right.
Well, we got a stadium out of MLC already.
Yeah.
We got the stadium in Grand Prairie, which is an excellent stadium.
Yes.
We have a place that's ready, that's just ready to get, you just walk into it and it's ready.
Right.
We also obviously have Church Street Park here, where the fans will come here. Yes, it takes time to set it up here. Yes, there are problems as far as logistics goes, but we have the fan base, and we have a nice ground there. What I'm worried about with the GT20 is that when they play in Brampton, when they set that up, it's just kind of a pop-up situation, and then they take the tents down and they leave. And what's the state of the ground after that?
Right.
And if it's a great state, then why weren't they playing the qualifiers there?
Yeah.
It's so to me, it's like if your T20 league isn't bringing you these things,
right,
then it's what's it doing? It's making some people some money probably.
And I think for associate countries, and especially non-test playing countries, where your domestic structure is probably your T20 league or some semblance of it.
Yeah.
It's really important that your T20 league does those things, right? For a country like India, right, in the IPL, you don't need the IPL to bring you a stadium, because you have a domestic structure that's bringing you those things. But when you have countries like Canada and the USA, those things are really important. So it goes to a big credit to Major League for doing that. Grand Prairie is Major League saying, we're going to build the stadium, we're going to have it ready, and we are going to do something about venues and facilities in the USA. So I think we kind of teetered off this point here, but
it's such an inspiration. This is what it inspires so many things.
Absolutely. So congratulations to every member of that USA Under-19 team.
I want to add, Peter Del Pena did a great job covering this, but what he said to me was so cool, because as we talked about before, that 21 team, the 2021 team was stacked. This team, they didn't even have like a frontline left arm spinner, which is weird.
Unheard of.
Which is unheard of in the USA. Yeah, I mean, sure, they had good left arm spinners, but the last rendition we had tons of them. So the thing that separated them this time was the attitude of the team, the enthusiastic leadership. It's on the sidelines and in the middle with their captain, Rishi Ramesh. And I just want to say that's so cool. That's excellent that they were able to win with. Peter is he's covered the league he's covered American cricket so well. And we know that he's a good critic.
Yeah.
And when he comes back and says their attitude was amazing, it was.
No, it was truly inspiring, a special moment, and one that we are not soon to forget. So.
Yeah.
Excellent stuff there. Everyone that was a part of that USA Under-19 team, including Peter Della Penna, who was covering it for everybody. But congratulations, because this is a moment in history and a moment that we will not soon forget.
Absolutely.
Speaking of moments in history, we talked about Major League Cricket. How about another league popping up here in the USA? The U.S. Masters T10, bringing the fastest format of the game into the USA. And, not me or you, we weren't there, but the most important person on our staff, Babar Beg,
right.
He was down there. He was there part of the Texas Chargers, and they knew what they were doing, because if you get Babar Beg on your side, you're going to win the tournament. Babar, put up the photo right now of the championship trophy. There it is.
There we go.
And Babar Beg is on the right-hand side of that photo. Are you on the right? Not on this photo, but he was on the right-hand side of a photo on stage celebrating with the team, because the Texas Chargers, after not starting off well, a lot of rain. Then they rained out the first couple of games. Then they lost the first game. They actually got to play, and from there, one out. They win the whole thing. And to be quite honest with you, I think Babar Beg was the good luck charm they needed.
I think he was the good luck charm they needed. Absolutely, no question about it.
So Texas Chargers, if you want to win back to back, hire him right now. Sign him on right now.
Yeah, and we were supposed to have another funny thing was we were supposed to have Paul Adams. We were supposed to do a little interview with Paul Adams, and he and our buddy Dane Pete, they went out to eat that night, and I think they might have had a little too much fun, and we had to cancel our little our little meeting there. But we're gonna try to get him on. We're gonna try to get Paul Adams. I want to get. It was funny because I actually told Babar, I was like, look, can you get us Paul Adams? And he was like, it's funny that you mentioned him because he and I are like best friends now.
Babar made a lot of best friends. We'll just leave it at that. But we had games that were more time to the Indian market, which again was smart. You include the biggest market of cricket in the world, and you also have a lot of celebrities and old superstars playing. And Jack Callis, I'm sure a lot of the South African people love that. I love that. Aaron Finch was there. Mohammed Hafiz. You had so many great individuals, and not just those individuals of the international cricket, but you also Srishant was there. But you also talk about major league cricketers that were there, really special. And a couple of our buddies, talk about Milind Kumar, Shanjai Surya, Mukhtar Ahmed, Ihsan Adil. But how about Obis Pinar, man? He's in Atlanta now, unfortunately, playing with the Atlanta Fire.
Right.
Hopefully we can coax him back to the Marshall Raptors. But he was a star with the bat in hand down there.
Yeah, even though he left the Raptors, we're going to talk about him a little bit. Here we go. There's some stuff right there. Look at this. Yeah.
Again, just this classy stuff, helps it through the covers, then says, you know what, I'm sending you back downtown, as big as you like there. Big as 6 you'll see. But Obis Pinar was just absolutely spectacular with bat, and then with ball in hand too. He was bowling well.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an all-around player, and that's what you need in a T10 format. So when you talk about Obis bowling, love to see the left armor go in there as well.
Yeah, 206 runs at a 208 strike rate for Obis down there in the Miami area. And we also had Milind Kumar, who scored pretty well, 172 runs at 197 strike rate. Shahan Jayasuriya, 181 at 172 strike rate. Mukhtar Ahmed, 162 runs at 225. That's ridiculous.
Ridiculous.
And then you got so this makes sense. Okay, Mukhtar didn't really click too much in the MLC, but they saw this in him,
absolutely,
and that's why they kept at him.
That's why he's in that lineup. Yeah.
He has one good innings, he can change the game.
Yeah.
Corey, 127 at 171 strike rate. Ihsan Adil, 8 wickets. Now he's celebrated the championship.
Well, Ihsan Adil has maybe had the greatest career of cricketers in Nate Hayes' eyes. In Nate Hayes' life, I think, because not only is he a major league champion in the inaugural season, he's a U.S. Masters T10 champion in the inaugural season, and he played in the World Cup match that got Nate Hayes, our very own Nate Hayes, into cricket. So,
that's right.
Ihsan Adil, you are part of Nate Hayes' history here.
Yes. So, for whatever that means to you.
If it means anything at all. Nate Hayes, he's your number one fan.
We might have to give him our little piece of the trophy here.
We could give it to one of you guys watching. You subscribe, like, maybe we could do something here.
We got some contributions here in the
before we jump into that, we got to talk about our buddy Dane Pete.
Oh yeah, Dane Pete.
He was spectacular with the ball in hand as well. not as animated as I wanted him to be, but took a couple of wickets. You see one here with an incredible catch. We'll get that back to you there. Yeah, pulled into the leg side, and brilliant catch taken out there. But Dane just does this, and an off spinner to be in the 11 primarily for his bowling. There he is, and then this one, middle stump gone, rattled. There you go, Dane Pete all over it. But for him to be a specialist off spinner and play in a T10 league, now that's pretty impressive.
Impressive.
You talk about him, Harbudge, and Singh. He's on the same kind of level at that point. That's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Dane had a good tournament. He's a good cricketer. I wouldn't be surprised to see more of Dane around. He's got the collar popped right there to protect himself from the sun down in Florida, and just to look cool in general, I think.
Dude, you just sometimes you gotta lift it up, you gotta pop it, and then you button this one as well so it stays up. I think that's probably the smartest play.
I want to see him bowling in gigantic sunglasses. Can you do that in the T10? I mean, can you bowl in sunglasses in the T10? Maybe I think you probably banned.
But it was an exciting event. Bobber was down there. He had a great time being a part of that, and so very jealous that we weren't able to be there. Trophy looked fantastic, but to see all of these guys perform well was fantastic. It was good to see Dane in minor league cricket. Dane and Obis, they'll be back together in minor league cricket. Maybe on opposite sides of the coin, but they'll be down in Atlanta for Labor Day weekend, so make sure you tune into that.
And also I want to say a couple of things happening in Labor Day weekend. Sure. Philadelphia's got their summer festival. We saw Liam Plunkett in the T10 taking 6 wickets. He'll be playing in the Philadelphia Festival, Philadelphia Summer Cricket Festival, which they held last year, and they had well over 1,000 fans. I was there last year. It was fantastic. I won't be able to be there this year, unfortunately, but I've really wanted to go. But so if you're in the Philly area, check out the Philadelphia Summer Cricket Festival. Go to the Philadelphians' social medias. And then if you're in Texas, go to the Houston one where they're going to give away free beer. So now we can't say this video is for kids because I just promoted free beer.
Well, don't worry, guys. I ain't going to drink any of it, all right? I'm 20 years old. That's not happening. But we got some comments down here in the section. We got Sagar Parkar. He was talking about the U.S. Under-19 team, showcasing a lot of talent, but about what you said, functioning as a team. And he said way better than the senior side, which you can agree with or disagree with at times. But I think he's right in the sense the future of USA cricket is definitely bright, and these things take time. And I think for us it's a little bit aggravating that it takes so much time. But
it does.
It's getting so bright because you're seeing the talent start. This becomes a cesspool of talent. And it's starting to just spill over every single cycle.
Well, we have a lot of U19 World Cup veterans playing cricket in the USA from other nations.
Yeah.
So we have Jahangir from Pakistan. Harmeet Singh. We have Unmukt Chand.
Saurabh Netravalkar.
Smit Patel.
Yeah.
We have Justin Dill.
Yeah.
We have Obis Panar. We have Shadley Vanshka. I think Shadley played in the anyways, we have a lot of the South Africans that played in World Cups. I believe Justin Dill was the only one that was on a team that won one. But yes, we have so many of these guys who just it's tough. It is tough to make it into a senior team. U19 team, you've got a 2, maybe 3-year window.
Yeah.
Which means you're competing against a smaller group of people to make the U19 team.
Absolutely.
The senior team, there are guys that are on that team for 15 years.
Right.
And it's tough to get them out. If you were a wicketkeeper in India, it didn't matter how good you were for about 15 years.
Right.
So this is the trick with the senior side.
Yeah.
But yes, it is very difficult. You need these guys they need every advantage they can get to beat out the crowd. And so this is why attitude matters so much.
Absolutely. Getting down to some more of the comments. All the facts is the page. They said, can you cover any USA school cricket if there's any? And that's one thing we do lack a little bit of here in the USA.
We lack a lot of it, but if you want to see USA school cricket that's subsidized or actually paid for by public dollars, you're going to have to look in New York City, which has the actual public cricket league.
There you go.
So that's actually gets it doesn't get enough attention.
Yeah.
But it's at least the very first
sign of it. And I think if you can get more and more of that into schools, you're playing it, you're hearing about it, and that's always a good sign. But right now, what we have as a youth structure, if you will, I think that's what All the Facts is getting at, is you have local youth academies that will take players under their wing and then train them up for about 15, 16, however many years, until they get to the under 19 or hopefully a minor league team at some point. And then they will filter into a minor league team as well as maybe the local adult league that probably functions alongside the youth academy. But that is the one thing I think we would want to improve next, is that having cricket in schools, having that available, and try to build the game from the grassroots level.
There are a lot of gaps in the chain that still need to be filled in the USA. And Sagir, you can check out some of the articles I've written about this kind of thing on emerging cricket. If you look me up under authors in emerging cricket, I've got
a nice little plug there for Nate Hayes.
Yeah. So there are some articles I have written about this kind of thing, maybe not exactly going into too much detail. But yes, we need, and one of the things we need is eventually get it in the NCAA. We're ways away from that because we need more girls playing cricket in the USA.
With Title IX, you have to have
exactly
equal distribution of players. But hopefully, one day we can get them up there. Especially, we got more and more women playing the game. It was down to the women's nationals and saw a lot of young girls playing. So maybe that day is sooner rather than later. But Sagar also had another question. He said, are there any other grounds or stadiums planned across the country? We have a couple that we kind of are hearing being worked on, a couple in California.
Yes.
Obviously, we still have Grand Prairie and Morrisville, but there are a couple building on. I'm sure you have a little bit more to say on that.
Yeah, actually we have some in we have two that are in the early phases in California. Now, one thing that I should point out is how long it takes to get anything done in large cities.
Sure.
Well, for one reason, it's you're counting on relationships with the public sector and the private sector coming together to make these things happen. And so there are a couple of grounds that are really promising, one in the LA area and one in the San Francisco Bay Area. Then we also have a ground in the Seattle area, which looks very promising.
Yep.
The Washington D.C., the Washington Freedom are making a ground they're in partnership with George Mason University, working on making a ground there, which is actually, I think, a really good idea because George Mason University is already used to a lot of traffic because they have a very busy arena there that they hold a lot of concerts at, one of the 100 busiest arenas in the world. So they already have the parking infrastructure, the road infrastructure. So that one's very promising. Another one would be the hardest one's going to be New York, and this gets to Anish's question: will the NYC venue be ready by 2024 World Cup? Now, the NYC, quote unquote NYC venue is going to be a pop-up situation. It's for the World Cup. If they do have one there, it's going to be pop-up. It's not going to be a permanent ground. It's going to be played in a big park basically, and they're going to put, they've talked about tens of thousands of seats, at least 20, 30,000 or so seats there to pop up. Now, this is going to be a really big challenge, but what it would do is, because they're going to host the World Cup before Major League Cricket, most likely, is it would enable New York to play some home games next year before they get a permanent ground built. And this will kind of be a testing ground for them to see what their draw will be.
Sure. Yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited about that, to see Major League get into some more home grounds. But yeah, it's always great to see some of these grounds getting back in and getting more grounds, because I think that's the biggest key. If we have places for people to go to see the game more in more locations, the game will grow. You'll get the word out to the game in more places. Nate, you got a fan, however.
So cool.
He's your guy. He's a regular Emerging Cricket reader and a subscriber, and he follows you on Twitter as well.
Great.
And I think that's a great way to close things off. Sagar.
Yeah, shoot me a DM, Sagar.
He'll follow you back now.
No, this guy's
no
real.
Promises.
This guy's legit. He said he's into spreading the game. If he's following Emerging Cricket and he's keeping up with the podcast that they have, then he's legit. So awesome, Sagar. Keep it up.
Awesome, Sagar. Thank you so much, and thank you for everyone who's tuned in to the show today. We appreciate you guys hanging in there with us through some technical difficulties. But please, while you're here, drop a like, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment while you're down there as well. We appreciate all of that. And also, if you could share this with any of your friends or family, that would be fantastic. Thank you so much for Nate Hayes, for myself, and for Bob Begg, who's done all the production for us and made sure we had this show on tonight. And also for Dane Pete, who hopefully will be back here in a week's time. We thank you for joining us on another Big Innings.